and this event is run under Heritage Open Days, the theme of which this year is astounding inventions, and obviously there is no invention more astounding than Subbuteo. Peter Adolph invented Subbuteo in Langton Green, and that's where Mark was brought up. Mark is Peter Adolph's son, and he just is going to say a few words, and after that Gianluca of the English Subbuteo Association will talk a little bit about Subbuteo then, Subbuteo now, and hopefully some plans for the World Cup here in Tonbridge Wells in 2024. So here is Mark.
Hello everyone. Thank you so much, first of all, for everybody turning up today. It's amazing to see everybody, and to know that Subbuteo is still thriving and it's still very popular. I personally don't do social media, so I gather it's still quite popular. So thank you all so much for coming, and also for Jenny and her team for organising such a great time. Thank you very much, and give Jenny a clap. Thank you. As you probably all know, it's the 75th year since my father invented Subbuteo, and it was only the beginning of the year that I realised that it was 75 years. I just happened to look online, and somebody said, "Oh, it's 75 years." So I thought I better sort of get on and get involved in some way. And it's great. I think my father would actually be quite surprised to find out that Subbuteo is still alive, as it were, to coin a phrase, alive and kicking. 75 years on, I think I always use the word gobsmacked. He'd be absolutely gobsmacked to know that it was still going, and people of a certain age are still playing. And I believe during lockdown, Subbuteo became a bit more. People were digging it out their lofts and what have you. So, as I say, Subbuteo is forever, not just for lockdown. So bear that in mind, folks, please. Thank you. I've been admiring the tables down here, so I might pop down and have a quick flick around. So if anybody wants to have a flick around with me, I'll be more than happy. I'll say cheerio now. Thanks again all for coming, and I'll hand you over to Luca. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
My name is Gianluca. I'm board member of the English Subbuteo Association, ESA. Thank you, Alan Crampton of SubbuteoPassion.com. Thank you, Jenny Peterson. Thanks, Heritage Open Day, for inviting us. I'm delighted to be here today to celebrate with you the 75th anniversary of Subbuteo. If I look back to my 9-year-old self, and I look at myself today, almost 50 years later, I have to pinch myself. I cannot believe to be here in your presence, in the presence of Mark Adolph, the son of the inventor of Subbuteo, Peter Adolph, and the author of the best book written about its history. I have been asked to say a few words about Subbuteo history and what Subbuteo is today. A huge task to be condensed in a few minutes. Subbuteo is still alive and flicking in 2022, but Subbuteo is also history and nostalgia. The scent of base beaches and the view or touch of the little plastic man with disproportionate round bases means a lot to all of us. I will summarize the history of Subbuteo in a few stages, giving you just a glimpse of each period. And please, Mark, forgive me, you know a lot more about it, so I feel a bit the imposter syndrome here, but anyway. Prehistory. Football is the greatest sport in the world. So many school children and even sailors use coins, buttons, or bottle caps to imitate footballs on a table or on a floor. Game creators use dice, straws, magnets, and all sorts of materials to recreate the fun and excitement of a football game. A similar game, New Footy, proposed to propel the miniatures with fingertips. But after World War II, Subbuteo mastered the development of the game and won the competition. Largely, very largely. In 1947, England is rebuilding up normality after 6-7 years of war. Peter Adolphs had a brilliant idea and invested £2 and 10 shillings in an advert on a boys' comics magazine for a product that had never been created yet. That would prove to be one of the wisest speculative investments ever made, as Richard Payne wrote in his book 50 Years of Freaking Football. Crucially, Peter applied for the game's patent. Then he left for a business trip in United States. Nothing to do with the flicking hobby. As an ornithologist, he had been asked to evaluate some rare bird eggs. Not long after he had left, his mother cabled him to say that she had received a total of £7,500 in postal orders and asked him what to do with them. Peter cabled the reply, "Bank them." The advert had captured the imagination of many kids who were eagerly waiting to receive their set containing 2 teams made of cardboard playing figures, plastic buttons with a lid washer, cellulose ball, wire goals with a paper net, and chalk and a rules leaflet. Purchasers were advised to chalk out a pitch on an army blanket. Peter had to dash back to Kent. The first Subbuteo factory was Peter's house. That would prove to be one of the most successful startups born in a family backroom. Fast forward to the 60s. As Daniel Tartarsky illustrates in his Flick to Kick history book, by the early 60s, Subbuteo had grown steadily, reaching £76,000 in sales in 1965. The family house factory had been replaced by an amazing network of Kent housewives who would paint figures. Indeed, at some point, the sports game limited factory in Kent was unable to cope with the volume of orders and had to be helped by factories based in Barcelona and in Gibraltar. Sales further jumped to much larger figures, 120,000 in 1966, driven by the World Cup played in England, £345,000 in 1968. Now, if we move on from the 1968s until the early 80s, at this stage, Subbuteo is such a successful product that the games giant Waddington, the one of Monopoly, bought the game from Peter Adolph for £250,000 of that time, the equivalent of about £7 million today. Under Waddington, Subbuteo expands further abroad and reaches its peak in 1974, another World Cup, with £1,274,000 sales. At this time, Subbuteo is such a powerful brand and a landmark in collective imagination. They still consider a typical artifact of an era. Subbuteo is present in records, book, advertisement, film, and television series. This is so iconic, it can be compared with the Beatles, or in today's terms, the Premier League. In the mid-90s, 2 big facts happened. European teams would be produced for the first time with a mix of Caucasian and black players. That was very positive. However, the American giant Hasbro bought the game, and that ended up to cause concerns to Subbuteo lovers. That is the decline. The business did not work out for Hasbro as expected, and Subbuteo production was discontinued in 2000. This is the lowest point in Subbuteo history. The game was in danger of disappearing. However, there is always a silver lining. Indie companies started producing Subbuteo replicas while the collectors' community grew steadily. This was the time when the mass production and consumer phenomenon ended under the pressure of video games. But it was also the time where sportsmen and enthusiasts all over the world kept playing Subbuteo and new developments of table football games based on Subbuteo. The revival. Subbuteo seemed destined to become a very niche game, but where there is a tendency in social life, there is also a counter-tendency. Middle-aged men and younger adults discover or rediscover the pleasure of a physical game. They spur their imagination rather than being driven by a software. In UK, Italy, Spain, Belgium, France, South Africa, Australia, United States, even in Singapore and Japan, groups of players drove the revival of Subbuteo and table football clubs, leagues and tournaments under the umbrella of a number of associations and federations such as the English Subbuteo Association, FISTEFs, WOSPA and Old Subbuteo. The pandemic time represented the highest moment for the revival of the game in all its aspects, including collecting, solo playing, painting, modeling, creating stadia and dioramas with a contagious effect through social media that has been picked up by national and international media in UK and abroad. So many people found respite in the magical world of the flicking football. After the peak of the pandemic subsided, leagues and tournaments and cups saw a record number of participants, spectators and followers. And what has been perceived as a boys' game for the gates is now played by an increasing number of girls and women. Many other friends from the association would have loved to be here today, from the English Subbuteo Association, but they're busy now as we speak in Rome, playing for king and country or watching the World Cup. The English Association, chaired by Alan Lee, with a diverse and very active board, counts about 30 clubs and 300 members, while other hundreds of players and enthusiasts join the revival in England, as evidenced by the booming social media communities. To mention only some key communicators, Jan at Subbuteo's Life, tea producer Keith Littler, Subbuteo lover Peter Acton have produced great pieces of work about the history and the technical aspects of the game. YouTuber Stu Grant, who is with us today, has put Subbuteo back on the map through social media, in particular YouTube and TikTok. To keep the momentum going, the English Subbuteo Association has won a bid to host the Table Football and Subbuteo World Cup in England in September 2024, and could not have had a better idea than hosting the whole tournament in Tonbridge Wells, Subbuteo's very birthplace, the spiritual home of the game. The World Cup will host the games and give an opportunity to exhibit collector's items and share the Subbuteo heritage, which is so connected with Tonbridge Wells. The town name I will always associate with an aura of enchantment. I saw it for the first time. I was a young boy in Italy at the time. On those magical green boxes, I had the pleasure today to meet the lady who was actually packing those boxes. So that was a joy for me. At that time, as a child in Italy, that magical name of Tonbridge Wells, I didn't even know how to pronounce it. The Tonbridge Wells Borough Council have expressed their full support to the World Cup in 2024, and we are very grateful for that. We are sure the local community in Tonbridge Wells will warm up to the idea. Today, we honor all Subbuteo workers, the Tonbridge Wells community. In particular, we pay respect to the amazing Peter Adolf, whose creativity unlocks the imagination of generations and still inspires communities of young and old players all over the world. Tonbridge Wells, September 2024, it's coming home. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Luca. I have to say, there's lots of fact. Every day's a school day. I didn't know half of that, so thank you very much, Luca. Thank you.